so we're talking about congruent figures, which is mainly what this unit is about, congruency. Your congruent figures are figures that have the same size and same shape. We know that congruent means that they are the same, it is equal. And also, if two figures are congruent, you can slide one over the other. That just means that if it's congruent, it's the same figure. You'll be able to tell because if they're on top of each other, it looks like just one figure. When you identify congruent figures, you must list corresponding vertices in the same order. This is called a congruency statement. You'll hear this word a lot. Let's see. Congruency statement. It says, please remember, in a congruency statement, your order matters. Order absolutely matters. All right, all good with the definitions? You done, Ashley? All right, so in the diagram below, the two triangles are congruent. We're going to write a congruency statement, then list the corresponding congruent parts. Let's take a look at this, these two triangles. So I have triangle ABC, and then I have triangle DEF. How do I know which angles and which sides are paired up? What do you guys see?
If they have the same amount of lines.
Yeah, if they have the same amount of hash marks, but the same amount of arcs, okay, that means that they are the same. So if I wanted to do a congruency statement, I start with the triangle symbol. And I'm going to say triangle ABC is congruent to what? Triangle DEF. So let's look a little deeper into that. Do you guys see that angle A here has 3 arcs, right? Do you see that angle D also has 3 arcs? So that means that those two are congruent. Angle B has 1 arc, angle E has 1 arc. Those are congruent. Angle C has 2 arcs, and angle F has 2 arcs. What I like to do is I like to stack my triangles. So I want you guys to write this on your paper. ABC, and then like right underneath it, DEF. All right, so what it's going to ask you, it says there's 6 pieces of the triangle that can be lined. You have your 3 sides and your 3 angles. Let's look at my sides here. Side AB is congruent to what? DE. How do you know that? But how do you know they're the same? Yeah, they have the same. They both have 2 hash marks, right? So we can write that AB is congruent to DE. All right, now in this picture, Casey told us that she looked at the hash marks and she matched them up. But sometimes, and most of the time, these triangles will not be in the same position. They're going to be flipped and turned around. It's going to make you think about which sides are congruent to each other. Let's say we don't even look at this picture. If I look at my congruency statement that's stacked on top of each other, AB is right on top of what? DE. You guys notice that? All right, so what if I wanted to do, what if I wanted to do BC? What is segment BC congruent to? EF. I know that because BC has one hash mark, EF has one hash mark, but if I look over here, BC is right on top of EF. It always is going to match up. And so the last one is AC. What is AC congruent to? EF. Okay, AC is congruent to DF. What if we just looked at our statement here? What if I asked you what BA was congruent to? What would you say? BA?
Oh,
Would be ED. What about CA? FD. You see how those always match up? It match up for your sides and for your angles. Let's do angles now. Angle A is congruent to what? Angle D. You can look at your picture or at your statement. It's going to be in the same position. All right, what about angle B? Angle E. Then we have angle C is congruent to angle F. If you look at your picture, angle C has two arcs, angle F has two arcs. If you look at your statement, angle C is here, angle F is there. It's always going to line up right on top of each other. Or you can look at your congruency statement here. C is my third letter, F is my third letter. Okay, you guys see how that can always match up? All right, good. Doesn't matter where you look, but I typically always look at my statement. All right, always, sometimes, or never. Two squares. Maybe always. Yeah, two squares are always congruent. I've been writing sometimes for the other classes, but now I'm realizing that's going to be always. Or always is a better answer. A rectangle is sometimes congruent to a square. A rectangle could become a square. A heptagon is blank congruent to a pentagon. Think back. There's how many sides with the heptagon? Huh?
No.
Huh? Is it 10? 7, it is 7. We'll get to this in unit 10, but for now, what's a pentagon? There's how many sides of a pentagon? 8 is octagon. Think about an octopus. What did you say? 5. You guys heard of the Pentagon building in Arlington, Virginia? It has 5 sides. All right, so a heptagon is blank congruent to a pentagon. Always, sometimes, or never. Never. 7 sides will never be congruent to 5 sides. All right, example 1. If triangle TIN is congruent to triangle BER, then what? All right, I want you guys to write on your papers. TIN, BER. Right on top of each other. Those are my 2 triangles. All right, so IN is congruent to what? Huh? Okay, then make sure you're saying in the same order. IN will be congruent to ER. So we're going to put segment ER. Izzy, angle N is congruent to what? Angle R. And Joseph, triangle NTI is congruent to what?
MTI.
MTI is congruent to what?
REB.
Nope.
Wait.
We went from N to T to I.
Wait, RB.
Yes, so it's congruent to RBE. Okay, we're going in the same order. If N came first, then R goes first. T was second, then B goes next. And then I was third, whatever's directly underneath is last. We're always staying in order. Any questions here? All right. Let's go to example 2. The two triangles shown are congruent. So it tells me that triangle STO is congruent to triangle KRO. I'm going to write those right on top of each other. Angela, angle S is congruent to which angle? Angle K. Aaliyah, SO is congruent to which side? Good, KO. Actually, angle T is congruent to which angle? Angle R. Good. So even though we did not draw these triangles, we can still figure out what's the congruent parts based on us just stacking them up. All right, is O the midpoint of SK? Yes, it is. And I'm going to tell you the technical reason why we know that it is. The technical reason is because if O is the midpoint, then TO and OR are congruent, which means SO and OK are also congruent. Which also means that T was congruent to which angle? R. And S was congruent to which angle?
Okay.
Okay, so technically, which we'll learn this later on in the unit, your next question says, is ST parallel to RK? And our answer is yes. And my conclusion is everything I just wrote in that picture. If O is my midpoint, I know those segments aren't congruent to each other. Those angles are also congruent, so therefore the lines are going to be parallel. This is kind of like our alternate interior angles that we did unit 3. Any questions on example 2? All right, example 3. The two figures in the diagram are congruent. Identify all corresponding parts and write a congruency statement. Let's start with our statement. Okay? So our congruency statement, do you guys see how these figures, these pentagons, are not the same direction? You guys see that? This is why we need our congruency statement, so we don't make mistakes. I'm going to start with A, because A is just the simplest thing to start with. So I'm going to say A, B, C, D, and E is congruent to what? Well, I started with A, and now to just look at the picture, A is in between my second hash mark and my 3 hash marks. What letter would that be on the second figure?
H.
That would be H. Do you guys see that? All right, so H goes first. I don't know which way to go yet, so let's figure that out. Then we went to B. B is in between 2 hash marks and 1 hash mark. So I'm going to go to G. All right, so I have HG. Now I know which order I'm going. Which letter comes next? F, J, and then I. All right, on your paper to the side, I want you guys to write sides and angles. When it says list all corresponding parts, that's what that means. So we're gonna list all of our corresponding parts. All right. What side matches up with AB?
H, G,
Okay, so did you look at the picture or your congruency statement?
uh,
Okay, so what Lulu just told us is that side AB had 2 hash marks. So then she looked for 2 hash marks for the second figure and saw it was HG. What I did was I just looked at my congruency statement and I said AB is congruent to HG. Either way works, okay? If you are visual and you can see this better, go for the figure. If you want to be able to just match them up perfectly, go for the congruent statement. What about Izzy BC? What is BC congruent to? Izzy GS, good. Did you look at the picture or did you look at the congruency statement? Okay. So guys, there's no right or wrong way. You guys can do whatever works best for you. I personally like the congruency statement, but if you like to just match up your hash marks, go for it. All right, Joseph, CD is congruent to what?
CD.
Yep.
FJ.
CD and FJ, good. All right, and DE is congruent to what? Look at DE. You look at the pictures more, or you look at the statement more?
FG.
No, not quite.
JF.
You see how many hash marks we have? 1, 2, 3. We have 5 hash marks. So JF. Oh, JI. Sorry. Yes, JI. Okay. Or and you can look here and see that DE are the last 2 letters. JI is the last 2 letters. Okay. So we're missing AE. Someone tell me, what is AE congruent to? AE is HI. Good. Alright, now we can go through my angles. Angle A is congruent to which angle? H, yes. Alright, so you guys can go through this if you can wait for me, or you can go ahead. Angle B is congruent to angle G. Angle C is congruent to angle F. Angle D is congruent to angle J. And then angle E is congruent to angle I. Are there any questions with how we match up our angles? And once again, you can always look at your congruency statement. If I have angle C, that's right in the middle, that's congruent to angle F, right in the middle. All right, when 2 figures are congruent, we can set corresponding parts equal to each other. Corresponding parts equal to each other. So example 4, the 2 triangles below are congruent. So I have a few missing sides. I have C, B, and G. And then my missing angles, I have T, E, and F. So let's write this down. B equals C equals G equals. All right, Lulu, look at B. What could B equal?
4.
B equals 4. It's in the same position as my second figure. Kenzie, what about C? What does that equal? 3. And Aaliyah, what about G? What does that equal? 5. Good. Okay, for my angles, I have DEF. Michael, what does D equal? 38 degrees. Izzy, what about E degrees? Good, 90, that's a tricky one. So they didn't write 90 in there, but they did give us this right angle. So that means that E is also a right angle. And then F equals what, anybody? 52 degrees. Does this make sense how these two figures are matching up? All right, so now we are going to example 5. Example 5 says in the diagram, ABCD is congruent to FGH. I immediately write it over because I like to see it stacked up so I can see which angles are matching. So look at my variables. I have 3 variables here. 3x corresponds to what in my first figure? 9. What about 2y, angle H? What does angle H correspond to? 44, which is angle C. And then 4z corresponds to 136 because angle K matches up with angle D. In this case, the figures look just alike, so you can just look to the next one, but if it were flipped, then I'll look at the congruency statement. Let's start with x. If it's congruent, I'm going to make it equal to each other. So I have 3x is equal to 9. All right, how do I solve this problem?
Divide by 3 on both sides.
Yeah, let's divide by 3. And I'm left with x is equal to 3. For my y values, 2y is going to equal what? 44. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and solve it. You should get y is equal to 22. The last one, z, is 4z is going to be equal to what?
136.
136. Someone divide this for me. Tell me what z equals. 136 divided by 4.
34.
34? So far, so good? All right, we're going to skip this for a second. I'll write it down, but what it basically says is that if 2 angles of a triangle are congruent, then the third angle is also congruent. I'm not going to test you on the third angles theorem. But what that means is if I have a picture here, let's say I know this is 100 degrees, that's 100 degrees. This is 50 degrees, that's 50 degrees. And that means this last piece here has to be 30, and it's all going to be congruent. Okay? If two angles are congruent, the third angle has to be congruent. And we have one more problem to do, just in time. We're doing this top problem here. All right, example 6. It says if angle A is congruent to angle E, so I'm going to draw these little arcs. And angle E is 3x plus 12. And angle D is 5x minus 6, and angle C is 3x plus 8. They want us to find angle A. Alright, so we talked about this, but not too much in detail because of, it's not till day 5. But if they told me that A and E are congruent, then I know that C and D are also congruent. How could I solve for X if they gave me C and D?
Equal each other.
Make them equal to each other. So I could have 3x plus 8 is equal to 5x minus 6. Alright, how would I solve for x here? Subtract 3x. Now I'm left with 8 equals 2x minus 6. We're going to add 6. We're going to have 14 is equal to 2x. So x equals what?
7.
X equals 7. Alright, I went through that solving fairly quickly for the sake of time. But now that I have x, now I can plug that in to get angle E, which is congruent to angle A. So I'm going to do 3 times x plus 12. My x was what? 7. So you guys type in, what is 3 times 7 plus 12? 30 what? 33? So that means that if angle E is 33, what's angle A going to be?
33.
33, because they already told me it was congruent. That's your answer. Okay, so your homework is homework C. This is what you do, what's today, Wednesday? Friday.